came home to find my gate gone, my dog tied to a tree, and Meredith Granger standing in my yard like she owned the damn place. And I mean literally standing there, in heels, holding a tablet, barking orders at 3 guys with fluorescent vests and paint markers. They'd already laid out some kind of winding path through my field with bright orange stakes, marked up my trees with pink tape, and planted a lovely new sign right next to my spring-fed creek that read, "Future site of Silver Hollow Community Nature Walk, sponsored by HOA." I read it 3 times just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. "Hey," I called out, still holding my overnight bag in one hand, keys in the other. "What the hell is going on here?" Meredith didn't even look up at first. She just flicked her manicured finger at one of the workers and said, "Let's reroute around that boulder. It'll be cheaper than removing it." Then she turned toward me like I was the one trespassing. Her sunglasses slid down just enough for me to see the look, part disdain, part amusement. "Ah, Mr. Maddox, you're back early." You know that moment when your brain tries to process something so out of pocket, so upside down stupid, that you can feel it lagging behind reality? That was me, standing there on the gravel, watching 3 strangers survey my land while my dog, my old lab mix, Bruno, whimpered from a rope tied around an oak like he was someone's damn problem to deal with. I didn't even answer her. I just walked past her, unhooked Bruno, and gave him a pat. He looked at me like, "Please tell me you're seeing this too." I was. "I'm sorry," I finally said, voice level. "Is there a reason people are drawing crop circles on my property?" Meredith smiled that politician smile, tight, polished, and completely fake. "We sent you multiple notices. You didn't respond, so we assumed you were consenting by default. It's a community project. For the good of Silver Hollow." I nodded slowly. "Right, only one problem, Meredith." She raised an eyebrow. "I don't live in Silver Hollow." That was the moment it clicked. The second where her expression froze, just barely, like I'd caught her bluff, but she still thought she could play the hand. "We'll sort it out," she said, like she was doing me a favor. "Just temporary access, minimal impact, all covered under the Greenway Act guidelines." I was still standing in my boots, dust on my jeans from the drive back from Tulsa, and this woman was quoting some pseudo-legal fantasy act like it gave her the right to waltz onto my land and start landscaping. Bruno let out a low growl. "Smart dog. I bought this place 4 years ago. A burned-out shell of a farmhouse at the end of a gravel road most GPS apps still don't recognize. Just shy of 5 acres, backing up to protected woodland on one side, and the HOA monstrosity known as Silver Hollow on the other. The house had gone up in flames about a decade earlier, and nobody wanted the wreck or the weeds that came with it, except me. I wasn't looking for fancy. I'd spent 20 years running into burning buildings for a living. After my wife passed, I just wanted quiet. Somewhere to work with my hands and keep my brain from turning on itself. So I rebuilt it. Every beam, every board, every inch of wiring and plumbing, I did with my own 2 hands. Took me a year and a half, but I got it done. Kept the porch wide like it was in the original photos, put in a tin roof like my wife always talked about, and even hand-sanded the old barn door I found half-rotted in the woods. But the part that mattered most, what sold me on the land in the first place, was the spring. It's tucked down in a little hollow behind the house. Natural stone edge, water so clear you can see the pebbles at the bottom, stays cool even in the dead of summer. My wife and I had a picnic there once, back when she was still in remission. She said it felt like the land remembered something, called it sacred, though she said it with a smile. After she passed, I kept it the way it was, cleaned up the deadfall, planted some native grasses to hold the bank, and built a little bench with our initials carved in the side. That spring isn't just some pretty spot in the backyard. It's mine. It's hers. It's a place that means something. So when I saw Meredith's goons poking stakes into the mud around it and drawing up blueprints for what she called a wildlife viewing deck, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not anger. Resolve. The kind that starts slow, behind the ribs, and settles in deep. The kind that doesn't shout, it sharpens. I wasn't just going to get them off my land. I was going to make sure they regretted ever stepping foot on it. You'd think having your gate ripped off and strangers walking around your land like it's a damn nature park would be the first red flag, right? But the truth is, the warning signs started earlier. I just didn't take them seriously. First thing she did was show up with cookies. No joke, 2 weeks after I finished the porch, Meredith Granger rolls up in a white Lexus SUV, steps out in pearls and high heels like she's visiting a country club, and walks up to my door holding a plate of oatmeal raisin like we're in some 50s sitcom. I answered the door with a screwdriver in one hand and motor oil on my shirt. She smiled anyway. "Welcome to the community," she said, like she was laying claim to the land with baked goods. I told her politely that I wasn't part of the HOA. She chuckled like I'd told a joke she didn't quite get. "Well, technically, your parcel borders Silver Hollow," she said, So we consider you an affiliate homeowner. We'd love to include you in our community initiatives." "Like what?" I asked. She handed me a glossy folder with the HOA logo embossed on the front. Inside, guidelines, landscaping standards, noise ordinances, paint color suggestions, suggestions my ass, and a whole page titled Voluntary Beautification Compliance. "Meredith," I said, "I don't think you understand. I'm not in your HOA. This property's grandfathered out. I checked that before I signed anything." She smiled like I was a child explaining how I'd hidden candy under my bed. "Of course," she said, "but we believe in community harmony. Sometimes that means thinking bigger than property lines." I handed the folder back without opening it. "Thanks for the cookies," I said, "but I'll handle my land my way." She left with that same smile still plastered on her face, but her eyes didn't smile at all. A week later, I got my first letter. Typed. Folded just right. HOA letterhead. Notice of concern. Debris visible from neighborhood walking trail. Which was hilarious because the walking trail she referred to didn't exist. The nearest one was behind the HOA clubhouse, half a mile south and blocked by a fence. The debris was probably the firewood pile I'd been stacking out back. I threw the letter in the trash. Figured it was a mistake. Maybe some overzealous secretary getting creative with the mailing list. Next week, another letter. Advisory, potential fire hazard due to unregulated burn barrel. Which again I didn't have, never did. I run clean, gas stove, electric tools. Only thing smoking out here was my grill on weekends. This one came with a bright yellow tag stuck to my mailbox, with the HOA logo stamped in the corner like they were the damned city. I started to get the feeling these weren't just friendly reminders. So I called the number at the bottom of the letter. "Silver Hollow HOA, the voice chirped. "This is Lauren." I asked if they usually sent violation notices to properties outside their jurisdiction. There was a pause, then a click, and then, guess who picks up? "Eric," Meredith said, all warmth and light. "So good to hear from you." I didn't return the sentiment. "You want to explain why I'm getting citations from an HOA I'm not part of?" She gave a soft laugh. "They're not citations, Eric, just community suggestions. After all, your property affects our neighborhood's aesthetic. We like to maintain a certain cohesion." I almost laughed. "You're worried my porch chairs don't match your seasonal wreaths?" "You don't have to be hostile," she said, like I was the one trespassing. That's when she said it. Casual, like it was nothing. "We've actually had a lot of interest in the land behind your home, the spring especially. People keep asking if it's part of the trail network. We were thinking of installing a few benches nearby." I felt my jaw tighten. On my land? Well, near it, maybe adjacent. These things are fluid. Fluid, my ass. I hung up without another word. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just some overreaching suburban committee trying to keep lawns neat. This was a woman laying the groundwork for something bigger. And the creek, our creek, was right in her crosshairs. About a month after the friendly suggestions started showing up in my mailbox, I came home one afternoon and found my fence cut open. Clean slice. Not kicked in, not worn through. Cut. With bolt cutters or a grinder, right along the north edge where my property butts up against the HOA's so-called green belt. The chain link was peeled back like a sardine can, and someone had laid down a cheap plank walkway through the grass, like they were building an entrance to my land. I stood there, holding a bag of mulch from the feed store, staring at it like maybe if I blinked hard enough it'd go away. But it didn't. And worse, they'd already installed one of those ugly little plastic signs at the opening. "Silver Hollow Greenway access. Scenic overlook ahead." Scenic overlook. They were talking about my creek. I followed the planks, and yeah, I should have called someone, but I needed to see it first. I needed to know how far they'd gone. 50 yards in, they'd cleared brush. The old oak that shaded the spring had branches chopped off and left in a messy pile, like they got bored halfway. They'd spray-painted orange dots on 2 boulders near the water and stuck survey flags into the mud like they were claiming the moon. But the part that really hit me, what stopped me dead, was the bench. It was a prefab thing, composite plastic, bright fake wood, bolted straight into the ground near the water line, right where our bench used to be, the one I built for Lila. Gone. I don't know if they tossed it, burned it, or just didn't think it matched their aesthetic, but it was gone. I just stood there, staring at the spot, listening to the water gurgle like it had every day since I moved in. Only now it sounded different, like it was running over something broken. Bruno trotted up behind me, tail wagging, completely unaware, bless him. He nudged the new bench, sniffed it once, then walked over to where our old one used to be and sat down in the grass. That just about undid me. I took pictures of everything. Every branch, every flag, every bolt in that god-awful bench. I even took a close-up of the cheap metal plaque they'd screwed into it. Donated by Silver Hollow, HOA, for the enjoyment of all. Enjoyment of all, except the person who actually owns the damn land. When I got back to the house, there was a letter taped to my front door, no envelope, just duct taped there like some cheap ransom note. It was a notice of collaboration, whatever the hell that means. 4 pages, printed front and back, full of fluff about community integration, ecological preservation, and passive recreation pathways. But buried in the middle was the real meat. The HOA was claiming implied consent to develop a walking trail through the interconnected watershed space behind my home, citing community benefit and natural resource sharing. Implied consent, because I didn't physically stand in front of a weed whacker and say no? I'll tell you what really got me, though. At the bottom of the page, someone, probably Meredith, had written in blue pen, "We hope you'll see this as a positive partnership opportunity. Let's not make it adversarial." Adversarial. Right, because nothing screams friendly collaboration like destroying a memorial bench and building a hiking trail through someone's private sanctuary without asking. That night, I didn't sleep much. I sat on the porch with a flashlight and a legal pad, writing down everything I remembered from every interaction with Meredith and the HOA. I listed dates, names, weird phrases she used like land adjacency benefits and low-impact transition zones. I wasn't just mad, I was methodical. This wasn't vandalism. This was calculated, strategic. They weren't just testing boundaries, they were betting I wouldn't fight back. But here's the thing. I've run into burning buildings with nothing but a Halligan bar and a radio that barely worked. You think a woman in pearls and a plastic park bench is going to scare me off? Hell no. Next morning, I decided to try the reasonable adult route. I know. After they cut my fence and tossed a memorial bench like it was yard waste, you'd think I'd go straight to the scorched earth playbook. But I wanted it documented, on paper, on email, on record, that I gave them a chance to back off. So I wrote a letter. Nothing emotional, just plain facts. To whom it may concern, I am the sole owner of the property located at 19 Millstone Drive. My parcel is not, and has never been, part of the Silver Hollow Homeowners Association. I did not authorize any construction, clearing, or modifications to my land. Effective immediately, all activity related to the Greenway expansion project on my property must cease. I expect the unauthorized structures to be removed and the land restored to its prior condition. Sincerely, Eric Maddox. I printed it, signed it, scanned it, and emailed it directly to the address listed on the HOA website. I also mailed a hard copy with delivery confirmation. Then I drove down to the HOA office, because I didn't trust these people to read anything unless it was physically waved in their faces. The office was in one of those beige-plastered strip malls next to a Pilates studio and a smoothie bar. I walked in and got hit with the smell of cheap cologne and laminated paper. Receptionist looked up with that smile because you have to expression. "Hi there, can I help you?" "I need to speak with Meredith Granger," I said. "It's regarding unauthorized construction on my land." She blinked. "Do you have an appointment?" "Nope." "Well, Tell her it's Eric Maddox," I said. "She'll know." 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from Meredith in her frosted glass conference room. Same outfit as always, blazer, pearls, tablet in hand. Same smug expression like she's already won, and she's just humoring me for sport. "I assume you got my letter," I said, handing her a second printed copy just to make sure. She skimmed it, lips pursed, not even pretending to take it seriously. "Eric," she said, "you're taking this too personally. We're talking about a community green space. It'll increase your property value." "My property value's fine," I said. "What's not fine is people trespassing and tearing up land they don't own." Meredith leaned back like I disappointed her. "You're being unnecessarily combative. The board approved the expansion unanimously. The project is already in motion." "Great, then the board can unanimously take it down." She set the letter on the table and laced her fingers. "You may not realize this, but we have legal grounds to proceed." That's when she pulled out a copy of what she called a shared access memorandum. Looked official, had my name on it, had a signature that I guess was supposed to be mine. It wasn't. The handwriting looked like someone tried to copy it off a napkin with their left foot. "You expect me to believe I signed this?" I said, holding it up. She gave the world's smallest shrug. "It was submitted during a transitional period. Maybe you don't remember. Maybe someone else signed on your behalf." I looked her dead in the eye. My wife was the only person I'd ever trust to sign anything for me, and she's been gone 4 years. That flicker of discomfort on her face? That was the first honest emotion I'd seen from her, but she recovered quick. Well, then I suppose it'll be up to the attorneys to sort out, won't it? Yeah, I said, standing up. I guess it will. I left her office feeling like I needed a shower. That night, I tried filing a complaint with the county. Turns out the moment the word HOA hits the paperwork, everyone gets real skittish. I talked to 3 different departments. Zoning kicked me to planning. Planning kicked me to environmental. Environmental told me it was a private civil matter and suggested I work it out with the board. It was like a bureaucratic hot potato, so I called a lawyer, local guy, real estate and land use specialist. Nice enough, but when I explained the situation, he gave me the same look I saw on rookies their first day in the firehouse. Polite panic. You're up against Silver Hollow? He asked. Yeah. He rubbed his chin. They've got deep ties with the county. Meredith Granger's brother-in-law is on the zoning board, and the HOA's got a legal fund the size of a small-town budget. I can write letters, file a cease and desist, maybe push for an injunction, but unless you've got hard evidence of fraud or criminal misconduct. He trailed off. What about the forged signature? I asked. If we can prove it's forged, that opens a door, he said. But proving it's forged and then proving she knew it takes time, money, probably depositions, maybe court. How much time? He sighed. Months, and meanwhile, they'll keep building. That was the moment it sunk in. Meredith wasn't just bluffing. She wanted me to go legal, wanted me to get bogged down in the system while she finished her little hiking trail and invited the neighborhood to come trample through the place I built with my hands. She had the playbook, the lawyers, the influence. I had a busted fence, a dog who still barked at survey flags, and a bench-sized hole where something important used to be. But I also had something she didn't. I knew the land, and the land, especially this land, had a memory. I wasn't sleeping much that week. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that fake bench, those orange flags, Meredith's smug face. So one night around 2 a.m, I found myself digging through the old file box I'd kept shoved in the back of the closet, the one with all Lila's papers. She was the organized one, kept everything, receipts, tax stuff, even menus from places we liked. I'd never touched the box since the funeral, couldn't. But that night, something told me to look. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, maybe proof of what this land used to be, maybe some record that would shut Meredith down. Mostly, I think I just needed to feel like I still had a card to play. Then I found the folder. Manila, labeled in her handwriting, Cultural Protection Filing, Spring Parcel. I sat down on the floor and started reading. Turns out, before Lila got sick, she'd been working on an application to have the spring, our spring, recognized as a site of cultural significance. See, her mom was half Cherokee, raised in Oklahoma. They used to talk about how certain springs were considered sacred, places of memory, healing. Lila always said there was something old about the land here, the way the water ran, how quiet it stayed even when the wind picked up. She believed it mattered. She never told me how far she'd gone with it, though. Inside the folder was a full application, handwritten statements, photos of the creek, letters of support from 2 members of the Eastern Band, and a cover letter addressed to the state's Historic Preservation Office. She'd even made a map. The last dated note was from 6 years ago. It said, "Waiting on township clearance. Local opposition expected. May need to refile under environmental exemption clause." Next to it, she'd scrawled, "If they try to bury it, Eric will know what to do." My throat closed up. Just reading her handwriting again hit me harder than I expected. But I kept going. In the back of the folder, folded into thirds, was a rejection letter from the state office. Said the request had been denied due to lack of local historical significance. The signature at the bottom was from the town's then preservation liaison. Name, Meredith Granger. I stared at that name for a long time, like maybe I'd misread it, but no, she'd been the one to shut it down. I don't know if she knew it was Lila's application or if she just rubber-stamped whatever didn't serve the HOA, but she'd seen it. She knew the land had been flagged for protection and still went ahead with her little Greenway project. And that was the thread I needed to pull. Next morning, I drove straight to the county archive office. It's this dusty old building across from the DMV that smells like coffee from the 90s and despair. I asked the clerk for anything related to the Silver Hollow development and the Millstone border parcel. She looked like she wanted to say no, but I must have had a look in my eyes, because she just handed me a request form and said, "Give me 20. When she came back, she had a thick folder in her hands. Inside, zoning requests, land survey maps, and a memo from 8 years ago, back when Silver Hollow was expanding. One document jumped out. Note, Parcel 19, Maddox, excluded from HOA jurisdiction due to pending cultural review. access to remain restricted until determination finalized. They knew. They knew this land was under cultural consideration, and they built around it anyway. Then there was this beauty, a scanned email from Meredith to the original HOA development attorney. Subject line, Spring Site. And I quote, "Can we expedite jurisdictional clearance on Parcel 19? It's currently dead space, and the board would prefer we frame it as public access improvement rather than heritage conflict." Heritage conflict. She knew. She lied. She rewrote the narrative and buried the paperwork. And now she was claiming implied consent. Hell no. I made copies of everything. Lila's folder, the county files, the email. Scanned it all, saved it twice, even emailed it to myself under a fake subject line just in case someone at the HOA tried to play hacker. Then I called 2 people. First, the State Historical Preservation Office. Second, Ava Redbird. She was one of the names Lila had listed in the folder, a cultural liaison for the Cherokee Nation. I'd never met her, but when I told her who I was and what I'd found, there was a long pause on the phone. Then she said, "Your wife was the real deal. I remember her." Turns out Lila had reached out to Ava more than once. They'd walked the spring together, talked about the land's significance. Ava said she still had pictures. "I'd like to come see it again," she said, "and I'd like to bring someone with me." That's when things started to shift. See, up until then, Meredith had played this whole thing like a land grab in pearls. Quiet, sneaky, and tied up in enough red tape that nobody wanted to cut through it. But now? Now I had a trail, a name, a buried application, a community voice, and a direct line to a state office that didn't take kindly to forged signatures and public access improvements built on sacred ground. Meredith thought I was just some grieving widower with a hammer and a porch swing. She was about to find out I was something worse. I was patient, and I had receipts. Once I had the paper trail, the plan started writing itself. And I wasn't thinking lawsuits, not yet. I wanted something faster, something Meredith couldn't wriggle out of with a smile and a committee vote. She played the long game through politics and paperwork. But me, I build things, I fix things, I show, not tell. So I figured, why not turn this into a show? First, I got back in touch with Ava Redbird. I sent her everything. Lila's folder, the rejection letter with Meredith's signature, the buried zoning documents from the county archives. She didn't say much at first, just listened. Then she said, "We'll handle the cultural side, but Eric, this story matters to more people than you realize. Let me make a few calls." That was my green light. I didn't want to just defend my land. I wanted to make sure this woman's name got tied to what she tried to bury. So I made a list. Media. Small town, sure, but local reporters still love a scandal, especially when it involves forged signatures and the word sacred land. I contacted a journalist I knew through Lila's teaching days, a guy named Rob Salas who wrote for the Tri-County Register. Told him I had a story involving HOA corruption, cultural erasure, and possibly criminal fraud. He said, "Say less." Community allies. I made quiet visits to neighbors, not the HOA diehards, but the ones who'd stopped waving the HOA flag once their own fences got cited for being too rustic. I told them what was happening. I showed them the bench was gone. I showed them the orange spray paint on the stones down by the spring. Some of them got real quiet, some got mad. One lady teared up and said, "My dad was Cherokee." That creek always felt old. I didn't push, just left them with a printed handout. Know what's happening in your backyard. And at the bottom, in bold, public statement coming, Saturday, 10 a.m., Spring Hollow site. Visual demonstration. That was key. People don't believe a fight is real until they see it. So I went out and picked up a stack of laminated signs, printed with quotes from Lila's application, the zoning memo, and even Meredith's email with the line about heritage conflict. I posted them along the fake trail the HOA had started carving through my land. Then I borrowed a projector from the local library. Paperwork offensive. With help from Ava in the State Preservation Office, we refiled Lila's cultural site application, but this time with notarized testimony, historical precedent, GPS data, and formal tribal backing. That gave us legal standing, fast-tracked review, and something the HOA couldn't laugh off in a boardroom. Backup support. I reached out to Lila's former students. She'd taught history at the local high school. Some of them were adults now, working in journalism, law, even city planning. One of them, Zachary Pierce, offered to help design a simple website with a petition and background info. Another sent me a quote from Lila's old lecture notes, "Land holds memory, memory holds truth." We printed that on the homepage in bold. By Thursday, the website was live. By Friday, the petition had over 600 signatures, half the town, plus folks from Cherokee Nation, plus a few angry HOA members who finally smelled blood. And that Saturday? That was going to be the spark. I called it a land memory gathering. Just a quiet event, I said. Just a few people coming to walk the spring, share stories, hear the land. No protests, no yelling, no signs with angry slogans. But I made damn sure the invite went to everyone in Silver Hollow, especially Meredith. And I made sure Rob from the Register would be there, with a camera crew. Let her come, let her smirk, let her dismiss it all as some grief-stricken heritage play. Because the second she showed her face near that spring, I had everything I needed to bury her with her own words. Metaphorically, of course. I'm not a violent man, but I do believe in consequences. And this time, the consequences were going to be public, personal, and very, very loud. Saturday morning, I woke up to the sound of birds, not bulldozers, and that alone felt like a win. I had coffee by the spring. Bruno wandered between the signs I'd posted along the trail, calm, sniffing, tail wagging like he knew today was different, felt different. By 9:15 a.m., cars were already lining up along the gravel road. Some neighbors I knew by name, some I didn't. A few had kids in tow, which surprised me. One older man pulled out a lawn chair and a pair of binoculars, said he came for the show. I offered him lemonade. By 9:40, we had maybe 40 people gathered around the edge of the hollow. Nobody spoke much, just quiet hellos, the sound of boots on gravel, the occasional, "Is this the place?" whisper. At 10:03, she arrived. Meredith Granger. White SUV, perfect timing, not a hair out of place. She stepped out in her usual blazer and pearls combo, like she was walking into a ribbon cutting instead of a reckoning. Right behind her, 2 HOA board members I recognized, Paul Denning and that realtor lady who always gave me weird looks when I wore Carhartt to the grocery store. Meredith took one look at the crowd and tried to play hostess. "Oh my goodness," she said, like we were at a garden party. "I didn't realize this was a full event." "It's not," I said, stepping up beside her. "It's a reckoning." Her smile faltered just enough for me to see the tension behind it. Then Rob from the Tri-County Register stepped forward, camera rolling. "Miss Granger," he said, mic out, "how do you respond to the allegations that the HOA knowingly approved development on land flagged for cultural preservation?" She blinked. "I'm sorry, what allegations?" That was my cue. I stepped in front of the crowd, held up a binder full of every document I'd collected, the original filing, the buried memo, her email with the line about heritage conflict. All of it. "Everyone here," I said, loud enough to carry across the trees, "deserves to know what's happening in their backyard." I walked them through it. The forged access agreement. The destruction of the bench. The fake trail. The fact that Meredith had personally signed the rejection letter on Lila's application while serving as preservation liaison, despite not disclosing the conflict of interest. I didn't shout. I didn't rant. I told it slow, steady, just the truth in the order it happened. People got quiet, even the kids. Then I pulled out the projector. Yeah, I wasn't bluffing about that. I'd set up a screen between 2 trees and I queued up a slideshow Ava helped me build. First image, the original spring, years ago, with Lila sitting on the old bench. Next, the bench gone, the trail flags, the bright orange spray paint. Then, a scan of the email from Meredith right there on the screen for everyone to read. You could have heard a pine needle drop. Rob turned back to Meredith, mic still out. "Did you know the land had a pending cultural designation when you authorized construction?" She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried. That designation was never finalized. It's not legally binding. Ava stepped forward, quietly, respectfully. She wore a pin with the Cherokee Nation seal. "It wasn't finalized," she said, "because you blocked it." Someone behind me muttered, "Jesus." Another voice, maybe Paul Denning, said, "You signed that letter?" She turned on him like she was about to scold a child, but the moment was already gone. It was like watching ice melt under a blowtorch. Meredith started talking, fast, blaming the board, miscommunications, even trying to say I had misled the HOA by not attending community meetings. But nobody was listening anymore. The story had taken shape, and this time she wasn't holding the pen. Then someone in the crowd, probably Zach Pierce, one of Lila's former students, stood up with his phone out and said, "Hey Meredith, can you look over here for a second?" She turned instinctively. The photo went viral by noon. By the end of the day, the Register had the story up. HOA president accused of cultural suppression, forgery, and spring trail scandal. Subheadline? Local widow's land at center of explosive preservation fight. They used the phrase alleged fraud about 5 times, enough to get the HOA's lawyers in a cold sweat. That night, the online petition passed 10,000 signatures. The county preservation office issued a temporary protection order for the spring. Development halted immediately. More importantly, people talked. At church, at the post office, at the gas station, everyone had a story about Meredith. The time she fined someone $300 for non-compliant mulch. The time she shut down a lemonade stand for not having a permit. The time she suggested a neighbor repaint their shutters for neighborhood cohesion. Turns out, folks were just waiting for someone to light the match. All I did was give them the matchbook. The board called an emergency HOA meeting the following Monday night. Now, normally those things are about as lively as a library on NyQuil, some poor guy trying to talk about sidewalk cracks while Meredith nods like she's judging a dog show. But not this time. Word had gotten around. The community center was packed. I'm talking standing room only, folks sitting on windowsills, retirees elbowing each other for front row seats like it was a high school talent show and someone's grandson was about to juggle. Rob from the register showed up with a notepad, and I spotted Ava near the back with 2 other reps from the preservation office. And right there in the middle of it all, behind the long plastic folding table lined with cheap microphones and HOA nameplates, sat Meredith Granger, pearls on, blazer pressed, hair sharp enough to slice through a zoning map. But her face, that mask was slipping. No smile, just tight jaw, narrowed eyes, and the occasional death glare toward the crowd like she was daring someone to make eye contact too long. Paul Denning, the board vice president, started the meeting like he was hosting a funeral. Quiet, somber, and very aware of how radioactive the room had become. "We've received allegations of misconduct related to the Greenway expansion project," he said, not even bothering with euphemisms. "Tonight's meeting will include public comment and internal discussion." Then he paused and turned toward me. "Mr. Maddox, would you like to begin?" I didn't give a speech. I just stood up, thanked the board, and handed Paul a thick folder. Inside, every document I'd collected, plus a signed letter from the state's preservation office confirming the creek was now under interim protection. "The spring was submitted for cultural designation 6 years ago," I said, calm, clear. "It was denied by a board member who didn't disclose her involvement in the development adjacent to that land. That board member later approved construction on the same land under a fake access agreement." I turned to Meredith. "You forged my name. You destroyed a personal memorial. You lied to your board and this entire community." She opened her mouth, probably to deny, maybe to pivot to miscommunication again, but Paul held up a hand. "Let's give the board a moment to review." And review they did. For the next 20 minutes, they went page by page. One member, Sharon, the boutique owner who always looked like she wanted to be anywhere else, actually took her glasses off and stared at the letter from Meredith to the zoning attorney like she'd just discovered her best friend cheated at Scrabble for 20 years. Then Paul spoke again. "I think the board owes the community transparency," he said. "Effective immediately, the Greenway project is suspended indefinitely. Access to the Maddox property is revoked. All structures will be removed, and the HOA will issue a formal apology to Mr. Maddox and the Cherokee Nation." He turned to Meredith. "Additionally, we're initiating a motion to remove Meredith Granger from her role as president pending an ethics review." You ever seen a statue crack? That was Meredith. Still sitting upright, still trying to blink like everything was normal, but something in her eyes just collapsed. She looked around the room, at the neighbors, the press, the board, like maybe someone would step in, defend her, say this was all a big mistake. Nobody did. The vote wasn't even close. 5-0. Gone. The fallout was fast and loud. The next morning, her face was on the front page of the Register, right under the headline, HOA, President Ousted in Cultural Land Scandal. The HOA issued a statement full of words like deep regret, unintentional harm, and renewed commitment to ethical stewardship. But the real kicker came 2 weeks later when the state attorney general's office launched a formal inquiry into HOA mismanagement. Apparently, Meredith's little administrative account had covered more than landscaping. There were retreats, gift cards, and a very generous holiday party with a bar tab that could have paid for 3 teachers' salaries. Her real estate license went under review. She disappeared from the town council meetings. And last I heard, her house went up for sale. Quiet listing, no open house, no goodbye letter to the community. Funny how that works. As for me, well, I got a letter too. From the State Historic Preservation Office, official seal and all. The spring had been granted temporary protection, with full designation pending tribal review. They'd even offered to place a historical marker, something tasteful, something that honored both the land and the memory tied to it. I said yes, on one condition, that the plaque include Lila's name. They agreed. A week after the board meeting, I was out by the spring clearing the last of the survey flags when Ava stopped by. She brought a cedar sapling, said it was tradition, planting new life where something sacred had been disturbed. We planted it together. Bruno laid down in the grass, tongue out, tail thumping. and for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like the land was breathing easy again. Not because I'd won, but because I'd stood up, loudly, publicly, and let the truth be seen. It's been about a year since all that went down. The cedar tree's about 5 feet tall now, thin, still a little gangly, but strong. The roots are settling in. I get it. Some things just need time to dig deep before they grow tall. They installed the historical marker last spring. Simple bronze plate, nothing flashy. Just a small sign near the edge of the water, set in a low stone base. Reads, Lila's Spring, protected site of cultural and personal significance. Land holds memory. Memory holds truth. Every so often, I'll see someone come down to the spring, a local kid doing a school report, a couple out for a walk pausing just long enough to read the sign. Sometimes they ask questions. Most just nod and move on. And that's fine by me. The trail Meredith wanted? Gone. Ripped out, replanted, reseeded with native grass. I even rebuilt the original bench. Same spot, same curve in the backrest, same initials carved into the side. Took me 2 weekends, and a little more cursing than I care to admit. Bruno still snoozes under it like it's his throne. He's older now, stiffer, slower, but still my shadow. He chased a squirrel into the creek last week and fell in. Barked the whole time like he meant to do it. I laughed harder than I have in months. As for Silver Hollow, they've got a new HOA president. Young guy, seems decent, keeps to his side of the fence. He sent me a handwritten note last month that said, "We're trying to be better neighbors." I framed it and stuck it in the shed, just in case I ever need a laugh. Meredith? Last I heard, she moved to Arizona, some upscale retirement development outside Scottsdale. HOA included naturally. Hopefully this time she sticks to book clubs and bingo nights. People still bring it up from time to time, the trail, the scandal, the incident, as the new board calls it. But it's different now. No more tension. Just a story folks tell when they want to remember how the mighty fell and the quiet guy with the dog and the dead wife held the line. Sometimes people ask me if I'd ever consider opening the land up again. You know, guided tours, educational visits, even weddings. I just smile and say, maybe one day. Because if I ever do, it'll be on my terms. With consent, respect, and not a single HOA logo in sight. That's it. That's how I protected what mattered. Not with lawyers or fences. With truth. And a little help from a woman who believed land could remember. She was right. It did. And now, so does everybody else.